I'm ready.
Great pressure here.
I hope it's
from the
Nicky
Maple
Rob's
Leafs.
goal.
Power play. Riley on the left wing side. Top to Marner again. Top of the circle. On to Matthews. Holds a pass in. Deflected by Nylander. Over top of the goal. Another chance for Willie. Another shot stop. Tavares scores!
Welcome back to the Leafscast.
We've had some great Joe Bowen calls over the last week. You're still going with this one? I want to hear Nicky Rob's goal.
One.
You change it in post-production.
That's from John Tavares' goal last night in the peg. Assisted by Matthews and Marner. Prove to me that it's not that call.
I want to hear Nicky Rob's overtime goal. I'm picky.
All right,
Man, what an epic goal.
Welcome back to the Leafscast. Episode number 2, week number 2, overreactions. The Leafs are...
Well, I mean,
Tim?
we called week 1 a small sample size. So week 2, clearly that's enough to make some decisions, right? Is it still an overreaction?
The Leafs have played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. 6 times 60 is 360 minutes. That's the equivalent of 2 Lord of the Rings extended edition movies. So, I mean, that's enough sample size to know if they're good or bad. We're going to overreact to it. That's the logic.
We're still in a wild card spot. That's all you need to know. We're in the hunt.
That's the only thing Ryan is tracking.
And the games, most recent games this week are almost enough for me to forget about the travesty that happened on Monday.
Oh boy.
Wow.
It was a rough one.
We've got some news. We've got some games to talk about, and we have, week 1 overreactions. Let's get into the games. So, Tim, starting off the podcast on his depressed Toronto fan foot. Maple Leafs. I mean, give Tim's reasons.
You give me the depressing game to recap,
Well, so I'm not saying Tim's innocent here. The Maple Leafs lost 4-2 on Monday at home against the Coyotes. The team that I think is consensus just the worst in the NHL. We'll get to this a little later. The Maple Leafs win on Thursday in overtime with, Nick Robertson's overtime heroics, 3-2 again in Toronto. And then they travel to Winnipeg, the Peg, as I've heard it called, on Saturday night, 4-1 win on the road. Let's talk about it. Let's go.
It's funny how many, sorry to skip to the last game. We go back to the good, but it's funny how many of those, is there anything better than beating Winnipeg? I just hear that from everyone. It's just I wonder if even Winnipeg fans remember that as much as we do. It's it's the thing. Is there anything better?
Other than the teams we've lost to in the playoffs, is there any team that is worse than Winnipeg that I dislike more? The only one that comes close to me is the New York Islanders. But the New York Islanders is their fans are the worst. It's just that the kind of hockey they play is a affront to the game of hockey. The Winnipeg Jets, just to their core, are just the worst.
Yeah, I forgot how much I hate Winnipeg. I remembered slowly throughout the day. I was like, oh yeah, Neil Pionk's there. I hate those guys. And I was like, oh yeah, Scheifele's a rat. I hate those guys. Oh yeah, Nate Stanley is a piece of trash.
You haven't even gotten to Dubois, the biggest rat of them all.
I forgot they're my most hated Canadian team, and I'm so glad the Leafs.
The list goes on.
We could start with that game. Why not? I mean, that's probably the one of the highlights for me. That's the highlight of the week. Winning.
What's funny is looking at these 3 games, we could do a podcast episode on each of these 3 games. There's lots of storylines going on, and but we can talk about the Winnipeg game because it's most recent. What stood out the most to me. So what's funny is we always see what the lineups are going to be the morning of, more or less, when they do their morning skates, and so we can chat about that. And the news coming out on this day is that Pierre Engvall is out, and Knack, otherwise known as Nicolas Aube-Kubel, sitting out in favor of, we'll call them senior citizens of Wayne Simmons and Kyle Clifford. Apparently they found a way to fit their walkers onto the plane to get to Winnipeg, so they got to play in the lineup. But
I'm pretty sure Wayne Simmons is 4 years older than you, Tim. I don't know why you're calling him a senior citizen over there.
Anyways,
he looks a lot older than Tim. In Tim's defense, I don't.
He's been through a lot. But maybe give me a couple other busy seasons, and we see if we at work and might get there. But I know I was livid when I heard this. I thought the whole point of us bringing out all these depth guys in, like that were new, and Robertson, mean that we never have to see these guys play together on the fourth line ever again. But then a piece of information was revealed that all was forgiven. New listeners of the Leafcast might not know, but there is a list of referees that are an affront to the name of referee, and that's saying something. Graham Skilleter is the most incompetent of all referees in all sports. I will fight. No, probably won't fight. There's a lot of incompetent referees, but he's horrible. And particularly, he's terrible at like letting games get away, and they just all become like just a brawl. And so as soon as I saw it was Graham Skilleter, it's like, all right, we're not playing hockey on Saturday. It's just gonna be a slugfest, and hopefully no one gets injured.
Here's the thing, though. This one, and I'm glad you brought it up too, because this was also my biggest takeaway from the game, is the Graham Skilleter and the way that the game kind of got out of hand. It's easy to look at the past and say that Leaf fans just cry about the refs because the calls don't go their way, and like this game was like Toronto's easy peasy ticket to ride. Everything was going our way. We got all the penalties going our way. Winnipeg fans must be livid at Grant Skiller. And guess what? I hate him too. That was atrocious how that game went. You saw them taking runs at JT, taking runs at Robertson. Like, that's not the kind of hockey that we want to watch. It was just like disgusting, and it's so frustrating how it happens every game. Manage the game, do your job, and like maybe we'll actually now the Leafs won, the better team won, we outplayed them. But like it shouldn't get to that. It's annoying that it gets to that. Even though we won, I'm annoyed it gets to that. Get it out of the game. It's no place here.
This game was really, to me though, nothing compared to what had happened in the past, right? I didn't really feel like there was a point where the game got completely out of hand. I do like seeing a fight every now and again, and I loved seeing a fight last night. Morgan Riley taking care of business against Josh Morrissey. Got him for hitting Nicky Robb on what was, I mean, like, I guess an unnecessary hit. I don't know. It's still hockey.
Well, he got a penalty for it. He got a penalty for it. So clearly it was not he did what he's not supposed to do. It wasn't just a whatever, it's hockey. He shouldn't have done it. Nick Robinson should have been expecting it. He doesn't have the puck. This guy lines him up in open ice. Another season loss for Nick Robertson. Thank the goodness he's okay.
But
it's not good.
What Ryan said before, the Leafs were the better team last night against the Jets, who are still an NHL team. We lost to other NHL teams, or what appeared to be sub NHL teams this week. A 4-1 win, like just a nice decisive win in regulation.
Mm-hmm.
We were the better team. What's better than beating the Jets? Like I was all about it.
Here's the difference.
I was all about it.
The Leafs elite players, or the Leafs have elite players. The Winnipeg Jets don't, and the Leafs elite players play like elite players.
That sounds like a segue.
I want to touch on the fourth line a little bit. I had a thought as well, though. You know, I was okay with it when they said, because I was like, oh yeah, it's Winnipeg and whatever. Fourth line's a fourth line. Like, it's important, but we should be able to beat them with a not talented fourth line. And I do want them out there if things get really crazy. But what's funny is that, like, does the team feel different to you guys when they're in the lineup compared to other tough characters like Knack and Czar, right? Like, we can do this without those guys.
I mean, they're your fourth liners. It's not like they're as influential in the game as a Matthews or a Tavares is. To me, it was more weird that both of them were in. Like, I get it. Like, you're making a statement putting Wayne Simmons or Kyle Clifford in the lineup that, like, we're going to put someone out there that can take care of business. And, like, maybe you're right, Steven, that it's not like Wayne Simmons is more muscular than Zach Auston Reese or something. I don't even know if he is or not. But it's like the statement of who Wayne Simmons is or who Kyle Clifford is. Like, the name means something. But to have both of them in where we haven't had either of them in for this whole time, it just felt like game one against the Lightning again, where Keefe is just building it up to be like, this is going to be a war and we're going to put out our warriors to, like, it's almost like Keefe is inviting it instead of like preparing for it. And I don't think it seems to me like he hasn't learned from last year, because here goes Clifford again, takes a needless tripping penalty in the offensive zone. It's just like, you don't do that. You're out there for like 5 minutes of the game. You can't cost your team like that. It's annoying.
And to be fair, we do have to give Wayne Simmons credit for like probably one of the goals of the year. I mean, sure Graham missed like a possible holding penalty that got Simmons in position. But once Simmons
Absolutely.
got the puck, he did the between the legs pass to David Camp. And now let it be said, David Camp, that man does not score unimportant goals. 15-0 when David Camp scores.
That's
He's
right.
basically our number one center
It
at this
definitely
point.
looked like
He's more
David
goals
Camp
than
centering
him.
that line's like a horse dragging a couple of boulders through the city, though, right? Like it's just like David Camp is out. I love it. I love it. Okay, sorry, Tim. You did have a really great segue. I don't remember which game you were segueing to, but you did have a really great segue. What game would you like to
Well,
talk about?
Before we switch to the Arizona game, which is where the Keefe's comment about the elite players originated from, a couple other points from the Winnipeg game. JT having this time of his life right now, which is good because Matthews is kind of struggling. On the other hand, he's doing well, but he's doing everything but scoring.
I have more to say about Auston Matthews, but we'll get to that later.
We'll get to Auston Matthews. And Sammy, Ilya Samsonov in goal, solid. Just like for every reason that the Murray signing has been a disaster, he's been a bright spot. Like he's a 25-year-old goalie. He's gonna be RFA at the end of this year, so at least we'll have a chance to get him under contract again. 4-0, 936 save percentage. I'm gonna overreact and say he's the savior. He's bringing us to the promised land.
I have more to say about Samsonov, but we'll get to that later.
What's his goals
All
against
right.
average now? I know it was 192 going into last night, so it's got to be like what 1.6 or something. Do you have that? Anyway,
not
it's
off the
good.
top of my
He's
head. He let in two
very
goals,
good
so.
numbers throughout his first 4 games.
Unfortunately, stats are for losers. Remember that.
All right,
But he's
let's talk about the loser game. Let's just get it out of the way. Let's talk about the Arizona game.
All right, we have 1 minute to talk about that. No.
Well, no, it was trash. I mean, no one showed up. We didn't look like we were completely disengaged. We like tried at the last little bit. There was the controversial goal that was called back, and maybe we can talk about that if you want to. But I don't. I mean, it feels like old news at this point. And it's just like you could sum up the whole thing with just the same thing we were talking about last pod with game 1 against Montreal. It's just the Leafs not showing up against the bad teams, and we just did it 2 games ago, and they didn't. They did it again. Like I almost like have just lost faith that this team is going to change. I feel like it's just like who we are, and we're never going to finish first in the division or win the President's Trophy because we just leave all these points on the table, and we're going to have to face a hard team like Tampa in the first round again. It's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know what the solution is because we've done it for years. Like, is the issue just like overconfidence? Maybe. Like, Leafs strike me as a pretty confident bunch, but it's just like embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe they need to get booed off their home ice, Vancouver Canucks style. That franchise a tire fire, by the way. I don't know.
No,
Steven,
I don't have much like comments to say because I do like to think that if we legitimately watched all 82 games of any other team's season, you'd have a couple of these as well. But Ryan, you are right that like it just happens to always be though against the bad teams for the Leafs, and it does suck. Like especially on home ice at the beginning of the season, like let's get off to a really good start, drop 8 on them, and send them out of the way. Right, the Leafs basically pay for them to have a franchise anyway, and here we are again. So it is frustrating. Shelley with not a spectacular performance, but I think he deserved to win. You only give up 3 goals. Come on.
Nick Ritchie scored against us.
So
of course he did. All the former Leafs have to score against us.
That sucked. But so Sheldon Keefe after the game calls out the team, basically saying the reason we lost is because our elite players weren't playing elite.
No, even more than that, he was saying like the difference between us and Arizona is that we have elite players, but our elite players didn't. No, maybe.
Yeah, Jesus, have it on Monday.
Well, you got it, but our elite players didn't play elite. You got it.
And it was interesting because I don't know. Sheldon Keefe, he's basically called out the team twice so far this year already. Like he's been pretty fiery, and I feel like really him and Dubas, there's so much tension. It feels like just like everybody's angry all the time, and like I don't know, maybe some people can feel their seats getting a little bit warm if things don't go well, and there's just feels like a lot on the line. Those guys are sweating some buckets, um, and so Keefe calls out the team, and then they're talking back to the rest of the players, and Mitch Marner kind of comes back, I guess at Keefe a little bit, and then Keefe comes back out and just kind of walks back his comments, saying like, "Well, what I said the other day, I misspoke. Gosh, I should have had the actual quotes up here." Um,
Well, yeah, so the original quote was like, the difference between us and Arizona is that we have elite players, and our elite players didn't play like elite players. Which is kind of funny because it's like a shot at Arizona as well. But I mean,
Well,
like,
it's not a mistruth. I'm sure they would
they
agree.
have Nick Ritchie and
Yeah.
Tyler Boyd, who the
Yeah.
Leafs waived last year as their top line center.
As their top
They
line.
won. We should
we
give them
like
respect.
we
They
like
won.
Boyd.
Uh,
So so yeah, so then the Keith follow-up quote is like, I used some of the wrong words to describe what I was trying to describe. That the difference in the game was that we weren't able to produce. He's just talking in circles. By no means was I meaning anything beyond that. They didn't know what I was talking about, which is a good thing. At the same time, important that they know where I was coming from.
Here's the thing.
Basically,
I
he's
think
blaming
all
me.
that happened is that Keith, for a second, forgot that he was in Toronto as the head coach of the team, knowing that any bit of gasoline he spreads will be a roaring fire the next day. And he just said what he thought, which was, listen, our elite players did not perform as such. All of a sudden, that became a huge storyline. He did not want it to be. He just said what he thought. So then he came out and said, hold on, guys. That actually isn't what I meant. But I think it is what he meant to say. And he wasn't wrong. Like, our elite players sucked that game. All our players sucked that game, and you move on. And clearly, the players moved on because they played fine in Dallas and they played really well in Winnipeg. I don't think there's much to it now. Like, I think once you win a few games, you put it all behind you. But it was definitely news when it happened.
Speaking of news, other disastrous event that took place that game. Jake Muzzin, I don't even know who it was. Drilled from behind into the boards. Jake Muzzin, long history of concussions, neck
It
issues.
wasn't drilled
back
from behind
issues.
the boards. Didn't they just
Yeah,
run
they
into
ran
each
into
other?
That's what I
It
thought.
wasn't
Was
a
that what it
dirty.
was?
It wasn't a dirty play. It was just like an innocent play. But Jake Buzzin's just made it of cardboard.
Maybe I just get angry. I was just in a bad mood that thing, so I needed someone to blame. Anyways, and so basically he's injured. They've said it's not a head injury, but like he had 2 concussions last year, so they're basically saying no timeline at all for his recovery. And Mitch Marner is talking about like, oh, I just want to think about his life after hockey. So I don't know.
Well, it's
It's like,
scary when those are the comments that are coming out with that's like on the players' minds. And like you're right, there's no timeline. They don't need to put him on LTIR because Matt Murray is already on LTIR, so they kind of have that freedom with the cap. So it's just like none of us really know. It could be in a couple weeks, it could be in a couple months. Maybe he's retiring. Like, and I don't necessarily think that's what it is, but it's definitely it's not fun. Like, and even though he's isn't necessarily the same defenseman he was a couple years ago, still a big part of our team, and for everything that we understand, he's a big part of that dressing room and a big blow for sure to the organization that he's just not going to be there for a while.
We had a couple of pods this summer, and Jake Muzzin came up a lot. And gosh, I hope we were just talking about how we expected this to happen. I feel like we went back and forth, right? Like some days we're thinking like the bright future, Jake Muzzin's going to have a really bounce back season, and then the reality of it is that like this was just really bound to happen. Ryan said it. He's made a cardboard. I didn't think that hit seemed like anything brutal or like something that doesn't happen to like Mitch Marner's face was bleeding last night. He finished out the game, and Jake Muzzin's. I said it in the chat. It's like a guy who can't do it anymore, right? Like he's just, and he's
No.
not unbelievably old, but just like his body's.
Well, it's the same as Simmons, right? It's the mileage.
His body's not going to let him keep going, and I'm sure. I mean, the guy makes what $4.5 million a year. Like that's a motivating factor to keep
5.6.
going, but.
no, not really. If you go on LTIR, you collect your money. So it's money's not an issue.
I'm saying, like, did he know that, like, coming back for this season, right? Like,
as opposed to retiring.
Yeah, like I'm sure he had the option this summer to think about retiring, and
Here's the thing, though.
God.
These guys are like the athletes of all athletes. Like, they don't even in their vocabulary that, like, I can't do this anymore. Until the team tells you that you're done and you're not good enough, you're going to be back out there. I don't even think it passed his mind. And I'm sure that if he's able to, unless if it is that serious, that it's like, Mitch was saying, of you got to think about your family and long term. If it's that serious, then you think about it. But if he's able to get out there and play hockey again, he'll be back out there.
Yeah,
So
and
we'll
I know
see.
we give Jake Muzzin a hard time on this podcast, but never like to see him a guy go down like that.
So what it does is frees up a spot on the second pair left defenseman where Rasmus Sandin, this is the transition, Rasmus Sandin slotted in the game against Dallas, his natural side, and looks really, really good. To the point,
Yeah, huge
you don't,
improvement over him
for
playing
me,
the
I
offside.
don't miss the Jake Muzzin, I don't know, effect or whatever, the skill in the top four. Rasmus Sandin is playing like a top four left shot defenseman, and he did on Thursday night in the win against Dallas.
Part of the problem is that they're top four defensemen in different styles, though. Like, you don't put Rasmus Sandin out for the same shifts that you would have put Jake Muzzin out for.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, they fulfill different roles. And I agree with you. I think Sandin has looked way better since he's moved back to his proper side, even though he's still with Hall, who I would say, even those 2 games with Sandin, has still looked questionable. But Sandin has looked good. I don't know if, like, our top 6 without a Jake Muzzin is the kind of defense that's going to get you through a playoff series, though. Like, where's your big, strong toughness? Where's the gritty back end? You got too many Morgan Riley, and I don't know. I mean, maybe
Even
once. Go ahead.
I would say even the young guys, like if you're counting on Liljegren and Sandin, like Liljegren obviously hasn't played yet this year, but if those guys are going to be significant parts of your team, those are 2 hugely unproven playoff commodities. And the playoff time they have gotten hasn't looked the best. So I don't know. I think if Jake Muzzin is out, like if they shut him down for the year, I think we make a move on defense. I know we previously talked about moving Justin Hall, but now I think it's like for cap reasons. But now I wonder if they look at making an upgrade there because.
But at the same time, it's huge news that Sandin is looking. 2 games he's been on his left side. But if we need to bring someone in and they could be our third pair left defenseman instead of our second pair left defenseman,
that's Gio.
The transaction cost there is massive, right? Or whatever, the third pair right defenseman. I just mean, like, to get a top 4 guy is a lot. To get a bottom 2 guy, that's not nearly as much. So it is good that those guys are looking better, and hopefully Liljegren just slots right in there when he comes. Because I don't know, even if Muzzin does come back, I don't know if I have faith that him or Murray, those 2 guys, are going to be able to stay healthy. It's just they haven't for too long now.
Yeah, and I mean that overreacting from Saul's sample size, like Muzzin hasn't looked great. Like he had a couple like really bad moments, but then kind of followed up with like pretty like decent defending. So who knows? This is early in the season. Muzzin usually like degrades as the season goes along, so I'm not super confident.
Let's move it along. Thursday's game.
Dallas, the exciting game. The
Nicky Rob draws into the lineup. Tim was wrong. Tim was wrong. Tim was wrong. Tim was wrong.
Whoa,
Tim was wrong.
Whoa.
Tim was wrong.
This is
Tim
what we all wanted to
Tim
hear.
Was wrong.
Okay.
Wrong.
Okay. I was not wrong. I said that on Monday, there was Keefe should put in Keefe should put in Roberts on the third line, make him earn the spot, and that way on Thursday he's ready to face his brother on the second line, make him earn it. And Keefe said, "No, I know better than Tim of the Leafscast. I'm just gonna not play Nicky Rob on Monday and watch a stinker of a game." And then put him in the top 6 anyways, because obviously I made a huge mistake on Monday and I have to atone. Tim was not wrong.
On that note, separate from Nick Robertson, but like Keefe does that a lot, where after the team loses, then he'll switch something up. It was interesting that
take the advice of the Leafscast.
After the Dallas win is when he decided to switch up his whole fourth line and go with this different black. That I usually don't see, but that's a bit of a tangent. We could talk about Nick Robertson.
That's the Graham effect.
The game happens. It's a violent game. Nicky Robb with I don't know, the dramas around him because he's coming into the second line that's played fine, like, but not really well together as a unit. If you guys agree with that, right? Where like
I would say last year. This year they've like John Tavares and Nylander both looked
yeah, but I'm saying
really
like
good.
they look great like when
And,
they
and
do things by themselves, but you don't see these like tic-tac-toe chemistry plays, I guess.
Mhm. The Marner
Yeah,
Matthews
where
effect.
it just feels like for some reason this 21-year-old kid is going to come in and just like do that, and he did. He came in there and he looked so great, and he's a worker. Like defense and offense,
I
right?
love
That
it.
guy's everywhere.
Yeah.
Also,
Go ahead.
I would say just for reference, those that don't know, Nick Robertson has an older brother who's currently a superstar on the Dallas Stars as like the heart and soul of the team. So us facing Dallas is very much the battle of the Robertson brothers. They had his mom in the stands, some kind of fun camera shots as Robertson had a I say Robertson had a great game. Nick Robertson had a great game. Jason Robertson, not quite as good. He was overshadowed by his younger brother.
I thought that Morgan looked fine on that second line. I don't think he was ever necessarily pushing the play, but I thought he complimented Tavares and Nylander fine. Probably got a little worse as the games went on and peaked in that Arizona game, which was not good for him. I guess the reverse of peaked. He valleyed in that Arizona game. But then Robertson comes in and like he wasn't just complimenting that line, he was pushing the line. Like I thought he was as noticeable as Nylander and Tavares, which not to say a slight on Nylander and Tavares, because I thought they were really good in that game as well. But he was just a
Yeah.
difference maker when he's out there. You saw him skating, you saw him hounding the puck, playing defensively. You saw in overtime, he broke up the 2-on-1 and then pushed it back the other way. Like you got to be what did we say about dancing in his pants if you're Kyle Dubas when you're seeing Nick Robertson out there doing his thing, because it's truly about time that you see Robertson delivering at the NHL level like that.
Shades of Zach Hyman.
Yeah.
Like all the things that we described are all things that Zach Hyman we used to love Zach Hyman for. And Nick Robertson has a 96 mile per hour. I was a slap shot or one timer, but
I thought it was
kid
a
can
wrist
shoot.
shot.
He and his brother both,
I don't
they're
know. It's
ridiculous. It
fast.
makes me think of like what brothers should be capable of, and then I look at you guys.
Hey,
We're here,
Nick
aren't we?
Robertson doesn't have a pod.
Yeah, that's true. The Robertson brothers don't have a podcast, so forget those jabronis.
Not yet.
Yeah, what a debut. I mean, like since the Matthews 4-goal debut, I'm trying to think of one that's been better in that time span of, right, you come in, and even though it's like his first game ever, I don't know if it still counts as a debut, but like
I mean, he scored a goal in the playoffs. And
He's not even considered a rookie this year. You can't call that
okay,
his
so
debut.
then what is this? His
It's just a good coming out party.
Coming out party.
It's a start to the season. You can
He's
say
dancing
start
in
to the
his pants.
season.
You guys want an Ilya Samsonov quote again?
I
All
love
right.
him. Bring him
From
on.
Sammy Smiles?
This is him on Nick Robertson shot. He's good shooter. Sometimes hurts, you know.
We know. We see it.
Is that the Russian player soundbite? The Russian player quote soundbite that you have?
Viva Leinen!
I forgot about Viva Leinen. I don't know if Viva Leinen was Russian. No, that's just my that's just I haven't come up with something better yet. I have one more quote while we're on the subject. Let's hit another one. This is again Ilya Samsonov. I live day by day. Tomorrow I go to practice. Have some smile and go on a road trip.
Poor guy. He just like this is his second language and you're roasting the
No, it's not. It's not even the broken up English does make it a lot funnier, but it's just like the I don't know, like the fact that they published the
funny.
quote,
Oh, it is
I live
funny.
day by day. Tomorrow I go to practice. Have some smile and go on a road trip. Like he's just have some smile.
Hey, you just keep life the simple things. You play, you stop pucks, you win. Have some smiles.
Have some smile. You
I
know
had
what?
some smiles.
That is probably the message that Leafs Nation had to hear. So like, I'm glad we have Ilya on this
He's
team.
playing great. I like the quotes. I like they keep coming back to him because they don't know what they're going to get. He rocks.
Hmm.
Okay. I'm so smile.
I mean, it's not even the first time he said it. After his first game against the Capital, he's like, "Oh yeah, first game the Leafs with me and my old team, but you know, I'm enjoying it. We got some smiles right now. We win an important game for us. Everything is good. Yes, Sammy, everything is good except for when you don't play."
Okay. You guys want to hit news or overreactions?
No,
All
let's do
right, so
news
I got a
first.
couple of pieces here for you. Just some goings on around the league. Hang on, my computer. All right.
I mean, we already talked about the Jake Muzzin,
Yeah,
but
we talked about Keefe, talked about Nicky Robb, Jake Muzzin. I had one more note on Nicky Robb, just the fact that he's a Maple Leaf. I'm so glad that the Panthers took Vladislav Kolakonik, 52nd overall in 2019, leaving Nicky Robb for us.
there you
Okay, we
go.
literally only have two
What a
pieces of
gift.
news then, because you guys so perfectly tied it into the game recaps. Thing number one, Jacob Chikrin. I kind of get tired of this story because we've been hearing about him for what, like 2 years now or something like that he's going to get traded, and it's kind of unbelievable it hasn't happened yet.
Oh, but then Jake Muzzin got injured, and we started about talking about an upgrade on the right side. Oh wait, no, is he
He's
left or
left.
is he right? He's right.
It,
Oh, he's left.
Oh, he's left, yeah.
which, by the way, in my notes, I have Jacob Chicken because I'm not going to start spelling out Jacob Chikrin, not till he's officially a Maple Leaf. But what do you guys think
All
about
right.
this? He's elite. He's on a team-friendly contract, and
Whoa, whoa, whoa! Arizona does not have
well, he
elite
didn't play that.
players.
He didn't play on Monday. Um, yeah, Keefe should have specified that. Maybe that means they're not going to trade for him. But and the only reason I'm bringing it up is because it's reported that the Leafs are one of the like 3 or 4 teams very interested in Jacob Chicken's services. It'd be a very high price tag, most likely two firsts, so like either 2 first-round picks or a first-round pick and a first-round prospect kind of guy. Is this something you think the Leafs
Mhm.
should pursue?
The only reason why I would even spend time thinking about it is because it's the kind of deal that would last beyond this season, right? It would be this season and the next season, and I think a few seasons beyond that is what his contract's for, right?
2024, 2025.
So,
So
and
3
this would all
seasons,
be assuming the Leafs were able to, unload whatever somebody's salary, or maybe they could afford it now that everybody's injured.
right?
Brendan Pridham makes it work.
So like if because we've been kind of burned before where we make these trades. You know, Nick Foligno's the most recent example where you trade away the valuable assets and then you do nothing with him and he's
Yep.
gone the next season and you're just left with nothing, right? Chikrim, it would be a long-term investment. It's like kind of what Tampa's done with some of their investments or make these trades and then they retain the players and they get to hold on to them, or what we did with Gio last year. And it just means so much more. It's like if we didn't trade for Gio, the odds of him signing here for this season are probably significantly lower than the fact that we
Certainly
traded
not
for
at
him.
league. Certainly not league minimum.
Right. So like that's really the only thing that would get me started down this road. I don't think the Leafs are a serious I think there's other teams that are just like more well suited to make that trade. Either have better pieces to give or don't need to jump through the cap hoops or are just willing to give more than the Leafs are. So I would be pretty shocked if the Leafs came out with this deal. But I think that the fact that we have him, we would have him for multi years is what would intrigue me and probably would intrigue Kyle Dubas.
The thing about Chikrin is obviously his name has been in trade talks for I feel like at least a year, if not 2. But looking at some of the numbers, his role is somewhat inflated on Arizona. The thinking is that on uh, a Stanley Cup contending team, he's a very good number 3, maybe a number 2 or number 3. But Arizona is the price that they're asking. They're asking for the price of a number 1 defenseman, which unlikely that Jacob Chikrin is. I mean, he's 24. He's still pretty young. I looked that up. I was pretty surprised. So obviously, like there could be room to grow, and like anything, he's played 6 years on Arizona. can't say we've seen the best hockey from him. Not the best situation there. So I don't know. I don't want to see Dubas pay number one defenseman price for Jacob Chikrin. I think the money or the assets could probably be spent somewhere else. But on the other hand, if he hasn't been traded in quite a while, so I mean, I imagine the asking price is just astronomical. Like if Arizona is willing to compromise on the asking price, he would have been traded by now
Oh,
That's a good point.
because they've made it their priority to get rid of all NHL caliber
yeah, it is
talent on their
strange they even want
roster.
to do the deal. But like, if you're the Leafs, right, that's a combination of whatever your first round pick and then a Nick Robertson, a Rasmus Sandin, a Timothy Liljegren, a Matthew Nyes, Topi Nimala. Like that's the and just like pretty much none of those guys I would want to part with. So I just think it's done. I don't want it to happen, but I was just curious your guys' thoughts.
I mean, you have to part with talent to acquire talent.
All right, last bit of notes here. The Maple Leafs unveiled their reverse retro this week, as the other 32 teams did, the second year of the reverse retro. And the purpose of this is to take a new spin on an old jersey of yours, bring it back to life, whatever. What did you guys think of the Leafs? I'm assuming everybody listening to this podcast is into the Leafs enough that they've checked out the reverse retro jersey. We'll see it, I think, like twice this year. But what do you guys think of it?
What all those people you mentioned, what they did is they Googled Leafs 2022 reverse retro jersey. They saw the picture, then they went back up to make sure that they typed in the right thing because all they saw was the exact same jersey we wear every night. It's not. It's just like completely ridiculous that we have all the money, and we must have just given this job to like an intern or something and said, hey, we need a reverse retro, think he could whip something up. And he just like grabbed the jersey that was off the shelf and said, hey, let's just use this one. It's like no creativity, nothing unique or fun about it. You see some of these other ones like Florida or I don't know. It's not that big of a deal. It's just a way for them to make more money, which is like, hey, salary cap, let's get it up there. But it's just like so boring and who
I,
cares?
I mean, like to be fair, the Leafs themselves like haven't like their jersey's been pretty consistent for about 100 years now, so they didn't have a lot to work with. But like I even saw like uh, a few fun fan made ones with like, oh, they kind of integrate the CN Tower in there. Like you could have done something with it. But yes, I mean overall, do I hate the jersey? No, because it's almost the exact same as our jersey. Would I go out and buy one? No, I own 3 of them up in my closet.
Okay, I feel like though the dirty leaf, that's a cool old version of the jersey, and you do that, and it's easy enough, all said and done. If you want to make something cool, frick, turn it green. You know what I mean? Like the Leafs, you're right, Tim. The Leafs don't have a ton of different stuff that they can play with, but what I like and what I like to think the Leafs are doing is making crappy jerseys on purpose. They think the reverse retro is dumb. Last year, their jersey was kind of like they tried to do something different and it just like wasn't very cool. This year it just like they didn't try and it wasn't very cool. I hope next year they just keep going. I think there's a couple of teams that are doing the same thing. Detroit's put up a stinker 2 years in a row. That's what I'm hoping. So next year, I guess we'll keep doing the pod. We'll find out next year. I think that's what it is. Just like they're like whatever, throw something in.
The most annoying thing about these reverse retros is the slogan they have. They say, "Oh, history never repeats." Is that just like trying to rub salt in all of the Leafs wounds that have watched history repeat itself 6 years in a row, being out in the first round of the playoffs? I'm sorry. I see the slogan "history never repeats" and it cuts me to my core. Like these people hate us.
All right, let's move on to our topic. We've been going on a while here. Let's get
All
moving.
right, week two overreactions. We did this last season after week one. Ah, yeah, I think it was after week one. We did a sweating buckets. We did a
It was
sweating
early.
buckets because
We did a lot of
the Leafs were a
overreacting
tire
last
fire
year.
last year at the beginning of the season. So, week one overreactions, we each came up with two, and these are things that we, yeah, just feel off of the relatively small sample size. We're either pumped about, nervous about, we're confident. Oh, I don't know. Just thoughts, I guess, right? And then we'll talk about it. Anybody want to volunteer to go first here? Tim already teased his.
Go ahead, Tim. You go for it.
um, I mean, the one I teased earlier was about Ilya Samsonov. And so for reference, the Leafs and goaltending has never been good. It's very much they've been good in small sample size, but as soon as you make it over the season, there's always some horrendous bits.
Mhm.
So very much an overreaction, but like I do like a lot about what I'm seeing from Samsonov. He's made like some key saves, just been solid when a time that we needed to someone saw. Like there was some times in the Winnipeg game, like it was tied. Leafs blew some defensive coverage, and like Samsonov made the save. I was like, thank you. That's what we need. And granted, he still has to work on his puck handling ability. He almost got burned that one time, but overall, I I wonder if the next how long until Murray comes back? 2 or 3 weeks?
It's a while, yeah.
At least 2 weeks. I wonder if Samsonov or like is gonna grab hold of the 1A label and Murray becomes a 1B.
Oh wait, Ryan, what we're supposed to do here is just say if it's an overreaction or not. So do we think Tim's an overreacting or not?
Oh, absolutely overreacting. I mean,
You have
here's the
such a
thing.
straight face.
Aaron, did you look up the stat? Did you look up the stat too that like Samsonov started the other year in Washington 9-0-1 and
Yes,
then
Tim,
flamed out?
that's exactly what I'm talking about. That
heard
every
it.
year for the past 4 years, that's what that stat was talking about. 4 years in a row, he starts the season incredibly hot, incredible, like 9-0-1, 6-0-2. Like it's just what he does, and we've seen his numbers beyond that starting 10 games, and they are not good. And that's like the numbers inflated by those 10 games. They must have been really bad after that.
I
So
see your point, but counter with that stats are for losers.
listen,
You
I
are
like
correct.
I like the eye test. I like what I'm seeing. We had no idea what to expect when he came in. We were hopeful that Murray was going to be good, and the one game we saw him, he was not very much not good. So it is absolutely a blessing that this guy can stop some pucks. But like to put any faith in it for this guy who just his track record is not delivering over a large sample size. 4 games is great. Don't get too excited until
Plant
you
the
can see it.
parade.
No, that's I know it's not like everyone is getting excited about this guy. 4 games. When you win every game you start, it's hard to nitpick anything. I do think he needs to control his rebounds a little better. There's something,
Ooh.
but absolutely an overreaction by Leafs Nation. This guy, he's not the real deal until he delivers over a longer period. I think.
I'm gonna say that Tim's not overreacting, but I'm not that confident. I'm not that confident in Tim. But um, Il- Ilya
Trust in me.
Samsonov,
Trust
He's
me.
just
Ilya
reacting.
Samsonov was sent away from his last team, right? A team that invested a first round pick in him and gave him a lot of ice time. And you're right, he started out every season well for them, but then he trailed off. And a lot of the reason they sent him away is because I felt like maybe his preparation, his maturity wasn't there. And I'm choosing to believe that he started the season off hot again, but he's a different man. He has smile every day, and that's what I think. So I just think he's going about the season differently. And the Leafs are a good team. Well, they should be a good team, and the defense is looking good in front of him. And I just think he's got a good chance. It's a different team. Like it's a different team around him than the Washington team that maybe was also playing like crap in front of him. So I'm on Tim's side.
See, I would say that the defense hasn't looked that good in front of him, and like what gives me hope is that because I feel like we've been giving up a ton of 2-on-1s or 3-on-2s, just like odd man rushes coming back the other way this season, which I feel like we didn't do a lot of last year. And I guess I hope that the defense can kind of clear that up, that the forwards pick their man a little better, or maybe don't make that pinch if it's not smart to, and we can kind of clean that up to give Samsonov a little bit easier. But it's the rebound control that gives me worry, but we'll see. It would be the greatest thing ever if he was just the real deal and the next savior after Jack Campbell's departure. So we'll see.
All right, Rye, you want to go?
All right, I'm going to talk about Auston Matthews here. Guy has 1 goal and I don't know how many assists he has, like 5 assists, 4 assists. He's been racking them up.
He got
Yeah,
3 of them the
last
other
night.
night.
Is it a big deal that this guy, the reigning Rocket Richard Trophy winner, in 6 games played, has 1 goal? I'm gonna say, abso-friggin-lutely, it's a big deal that he has 1 goal in 6 games played. And here's why: I'm watching the other teams; they permanently have 2 guys on Auston Matthews. two guys are just sitting there hounding him every time. He has no room to work out there, and he can't do anything. And
Do you think
that's
he's
why he's racking up some assists here. He's on the last game alone, he had 3 assists, and he looked
Yeah.
great out there. He really did.
do you think he's
But
healthy
he
right
didn't
now?
get the goals, or not even that. He didn't really look that dangerous offensively in terms of like him being the shooter. He just like I think that other teams are, when you win the Hart and you win the Rocket, you get even more attention when you're out there. And especially because Marner has kind of been struggling this year as well. Teams are just double teaming the guy. And especially on the power play, I don't think he looks that dangerous because he's just no room to work out there. So I think it's absolutely concerning that he only has 1 goal so far. Maybe it was that cross check that he suffered in Dallas that's making him not healthy. But like, he had 4 games before that where I didn't think he looked that dangerous. So I don't think he's going to be like a bust this season. But I am seriously walking back my 70 goal prediction from before the season began. I'm starting to wonder if he's going to get 50. I don't know. We'll see. It's not looking great for him and Mitch so far.
Well, I think you are overreacting. I think it's a little bit concerning that Auston Matthews is usually the Ilya Samsonov of October, right? October, Auston Matthews is lit and he starts the season off hot. I feel like every single year, maybe last year might have been the first one he had, but he usually starts off great. And so this year, I don't know, like him starting flow, it is concerning. However, the power play does look good. That's a big part of his game. I think maybe some of the other pieces around him, like if Mitch scored, I think almost 30 goals last year, right? If he pots a few of them, people are going to start showing him a little bit more attention as well. Like you still got to play
Mm-hmm.
a hockey game, and you got to cover everybody. Yeah, you are right. Like 70 goals feels pretty lofty now. He because you can't fall behind like this. Um, I just think that he's gonna figure it out. Like he still looks great, right? He looks great. He's had the shots. Um,
He looks great, but he doesn't look Auston Matthews great. Like peak Auston Matthews last year at times, the guy was untouchable. You put 2 guys on him and he makes those 2 guys look silly.
Yes.
This year he's not quite at that level. I do say like Ryan is overreacting somewhat. Like I'm not concerned about Auston Matthews. I wonder if he's nursing an injury. We saw him last year go through similar stats as this, what except last year was or maybe it was 2 years ago was his wrist, where he couldn't score, but he was just dominant in the other factors of the game. We saw a couple times. Maybe it is that cross check. Jamie Benn,
stupid.
dirty player, got him just in the wrong spot. But I'm overall not too concerned. I think the goals will start to come.
Here's the thing, though. I've been really watching the power play recently because we've been getting a lot of goals on the power play and it's been fun. But I'm noticing teams doing this thing that I've literally been saying for years now, before Matthews was in the league, watching like Stamkos roll into town or like especially Ovechkin. And I keep saying, why don't you just, because they just stand there in their spot and wait for the puck to get to them, smack it home, and it's just a free goal because that's what Ovechkin does. Put a guy on him. Would you not rather have a 5 or excuse me, would you not rather have a 4-on-3 and have Ovechkin not be on the ice or not be a factor over a 5-on-4, but Ovechkin's over there? Like, pick the 4-on-3, take out put your worst penalty killer and just sit him on Ovechkin. Doesn't even matter if the puck's in rear arm. Just put him on his side and let the others do 4-on-3. You're going to do better off. And that's what I see them doing with Matthews. He literally doesn't matter where the puck is. He is never free out there. And he doesn't look dangerous as a shooting threat. He's making the plays. We're getting the goals because thankfully Tavares and Nylander have been really good to start the season. But Matthews doesn't look dangerous out there.
Matthews was going to score a power play goal yesterday, except Tavares stole it with his tip.
No, that tip was fantastic. You can't say Tavares stole it with his tip. That was a phenomenal tip. Give me a break. How many goals has Matthews stolen with his tips? Give me a break, Tim.
Oh man,
I have a light and a heavy overreaction. I'll hit the light one real quick. And it's kind of to Ryan's point.
does it have to do with facial hair?
Tim, this is serious. Tim.
Good. It has to do with facial hair.
Michael Bunting's chin. No. Okay. The Leafs need the Leafs are loose right now, and it shows on the ice with their shooting. I have never seen this many missed the net shots. I think I heard they had 16 in the game against Dallas on Thursday.
Mhm.
And they had a ton again last night. And it's everybody. It's Nylander, it's Matthews.
And a ton against Arizona. Like Arizona was
Who was
brutal.
the guy? Was it Sandine sent it like 6 feet wide, basically a Cody shot wide. What the heck is going on with the Leafs and their shooting? I remember a couple of years ago on Fridays they did a skills day, and it was like an optional one where, right, the Friday practice, right, whoever comes in, and it's just skill stuff like shooting and all that elite crap. They need that again. And I think that's a factor on Auston Matthews. I think I've seen him with a handful of these opportunities, and he's rattling it wide. And it's like they're like, 2,
Mhm.
3 inches wide. But it's like, guys, like you didn't used to do this. What's up? That's concerning to me, where it's just like, I don't know. It's the weirdest thing. Like, how are you guys all freaking missing the net? Are they smaller? Is this Skilleter again?
I would say that that part's concerning to me, just because like there's no way to fix that other than the players start hitting the net.
Hit
Like
the
unless
net.
maybe like have them practice more or something, but that's not something that you can like coach. Or I mean, I guess it would be concerning if you just think that our players are actually bad and we have a bad team out there that needs to be traded. But like that's not something that we can fix. It'll just something we've seen a large enough sample size from enough of these guys, maybe not some of the younger guys, but like the ones who you really want to be hitting the net, that surely that's just going to fix itself. I don't know if I would be focusing too much of my energy on that, but I have noticed it as well. And that not only that, but so many of our shots are getting blocked, or we're just like passing it around forever and not taking a shot. Like pucks on net, people, it is annoying.
You've heard it here first. The Leafcast thinks the Leafs should hit the net.
Okay.
Well,
Can
they
I
don't
give you?
do it.
Can I snake? This is a draft. We're snaking. I'm going back to back. Okay, I'll give you guys a heavy one.
All right.
The third line does not work. That's my overreaction.
Hmm.
The with
The
Yarn
Yarn
Crook.
Croak, Engvall, and Alex Kerfoot line, it doesn't work, and it's not going to work all year. And it's inevitable that either Kerfoot's going to hop onto this second line and Robertson's going to come down. Somebody's going to take one of these third line. Like, it's not going to work. There's not enough good players on that line with Alex Kerfoot to work. So
So what you're saying is that someone's point that there's not a goal scorer on that line was actually a valid one from earlier in
well,
the
and
year.
they start almost every draw in the defensive zone. So I guess like they're doing that job, I guess, but it's just like they don't. I don't know. It feels like a complete waste of time, and like it's just a line that's not going to get anything done. It's not going to help us win any games. Like, so
I do kind of agree. Like I think that the three of those players, looking at like the EA Sports game and look at the chemistry, I think all three of them play a very similar role. Like all three very much like the jack of all trades. You can put them up and down the lineup. They'll uh, move the puck around. They can play defense. They can do some penalty kill, but not. But like the problem is when you have all three of those guys is they don't specialize in anything. We call them the Jimmy VC line. Like, what is the identity of this line other than that they just do
yeah.
stuff sometimes?
I remember last year Engvall looked really good on that third line when Camp was when that was the like defensive line. And like Engvall with his speed, I don't know, it just fit well. And I wonder if playing on that third line, like you're right, Tim, it's almost like the same player three times, or there's no chemistry or something. I don't know. Let's just switch it up, because clearly Keefe isn't liking his fourth line either if he throws out Simmons and Clifford down there. So like I kind of agree with you, Steven. I haven't really seen them do much. I haven't seen them do anything poor. Like they're not getting hemmed in. They're not being outscored or outchanced. It's just like it feels like a nothing's happening line when they're out there, and you kind of wish that our depth was better than that. So I kind of think that maybe Engvall should move down. But to me, the biggest disappointment has been Yarncrook, or Yarncrook, as I think his name is pronounced. We have him for 4 years, and in the 6 games we've seen him, I honestly couldn't tell you one thing about him. Like I don't really know. I don't really know what he does out there. He's probably been our least noticeable of all our acquisitions.
I think it's a little bit the like what he is. Like he's not a flashy player. Like he's there as like closer to a Mr. Reliable than anything else.
But I
Uh
notice Kerfoot when he's out there, Tim, and I wouldn't say he's a flashy player either. But like I see him do like he's a busy beaver out there. I don't remember any shift. I don't remember a single thing that Yardcrook has done. I don't remember a play or a misplay. Like maybe he doesn't even have ice time. Has he played for us this season yet? I don't know.
Can confirm he has played for the Maple Leafs this year.
It's just the 4 years. Like if you're gonna take a risk and commit to a guy 4 years, you want to know
No,
what
you're
you're
right.
getting. And like 6 games in, I still don't really know what we're getting. And even like Engvall two and a half or 2.25 million, whatever he's at, like that's a lot for this team to be given out to a guy who just got healthy scratched in game 6. I wouldn't say that's an overreaction at all, Steven. The way that the third line has performed so far is it's concerning.
we actually didn't touch on that. We skipped over it, but what I wonder about having both Simmons and Clifford in, I wonder if it was as much a message to Engvall and a message to Knack that they need to be better rather than it was a particular skill set needed one night or the
Uh,
other.
Maybe the number of times that Keith brings up, like, I love this internal competition and people vying for line spots. It's like literally every single interview he does. So maybe that is all it was, Tim.
Today's practice, Tim was at the Forge, the Hamilton Forge. He's missed out. Ryan was probably sleeping in.
Big win. Although it was a basically Graham Skilleter reffing the match. It's like, oh, it was got out of hand. The red cards either way. Anytime you watch a soccer game, there's lots of dramatics on the field, but got the
I'm
win at
just
the end of the
imagining
day.
Tim there, the
All right.
stands, Becky's family, and he's just like red in the face, like, this is just like when that guy Skilleter. And it's like, Tim, you're fine. This is at the Forge. Skilleter.
It's fine. I'm over it, right? We
Today's
got the win.
practice featured that same fourth line, but Engvall back on the third line. So Knack and Czar both out of the lineup. I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens tomorrow, but could be a lot of games of Simmons and Clifford. Okay.
I think Clifford is out. I think Simmons stays in. Simmons gets to stay an extra game just for his fancy between the legs pass.
Was fancy.
Okay. You guys want to do one more and then we wrap it up?
All right, my other one that I had here was about Justin Hall, who was quite the hot topic basically all of last year, and he started 6 games with us, looked quite not good with Jake Muzzin, and has looked okay with Rasmus Sandin. Is it an overreaction? And I'm going to say nope. I think this is Justin Hall. I think that is not a small sample size at this point. We've seen it last year. We've seen no reason to think otherwise this year. I'm starting to think it was a mistake to protect this guy at the deadline because he's not performing like a $2 million player anymore. And I think that it's not even the kind of thing that we could dump to another team at this point. And I think we're kind of stuck with him. And it's a tough one. I don't know. I think that he's not contributing to our defense getting any better anymore. And maybe we have to try him with Gio because Gio fixes everything. But I've kind of moved on from the Justin Hall redemption train, and I think that he's just a step too slow for the NHL at this point. At least the NHL top 4, maybe in the bottom 6.
I'm not sure if I wouldn't say slowness is an issue. I'd say it's more decision making. But $2 million
slow with decision making. Like it's all anyway. Go ahead.
I don't know. The only thing I'd say is like $2 million is a pretty low bar to clear. Like Ilya Lyubushkin got like $2.7 million last offseason from Buffalo.
But he shouldn't have, Tim. Like you're referring him to a bad contract.
Maybe. I don't know. I didn't pull up any of the Vancouver Canucks defenseman contracts.
Oh, go ahead, Tim.
No, I was gonna say like $2 million. I not. It's hard because yes, like Jared McCann obviously had a fantastic year last year at the for the Seattle Kraken, and Justin Hall I'd probably say is about our 6th best defenseman, if not 7th.
I'd say 7th. You think he's better than Liljegren?
No.
Like to me, he's a clear 7th. A clear 7th best.
There was a time last season when he was out of the lineup. Do you guys remember that? Out of the lineup, healthy, scratched for
like
it
5
was a
games.
long time.
Because we won them all.
Again, he came back because of injuries and kind of just like had somehow stuck around. But you're right. I mean, to me, At this point, I think we've passed, like, we've had more bad Justin Hall than we had the good Justin Hall, right? Like it feels
Yeah.
that way. So yeah, his time's done. I mean, but he just like it's probably for the same reason that he got back in the lineup in the first place last year. Um, the injuries, right? Like he's 6'5" every
Hmm.
night and he always stays healthy. And
Well, it's when it's like it's one season, right? If he's one bad season, you can put off and say, "Okay, it might have just been an off year, and he'll bounce back." But when it's the second year now, and in 6 games, we just see the exact same problems we saw last year. There's just no reason to think
yeah.
it'll be any different, and it's going to change over the next 77 games or whatever you have left.
It'll be really interesting to see what he gets. Like this is his last year at $2 million. He unrestricted free agent next summer.
Hmm.
Like obviously Leaf like Kyle Dewar has been a huge Justin
Yeah.
Hall fan for years. Like we forget in the Babcock years, Justin Hall was a healthy scratch for 70
Yeah.
games in a row.
Was he even from the Sioux though, Tim?
No, I think he was from lower. He was from the ECHL,
Oh, this
and like
guy.
Dubas picked him up from nothing and brought him to
Eh,
Marley.
Vancouver will give him an 8x4 or something.
If they still play next
Surely
year.
that'll fix them.
All right, Tim, what's your last one?
I was gonna talk about John Tavares. It's not great. I was gonna overreact saying like John Tavares has beaten up Father Time and he's gonna have a fantastic year because he's
Hey,
looking
I'm
great.
with you on that one. I think he's looked great, and it's not even like he's just standing in the right spots and shooting into the back of the net. The power play is
Yep.
where he lives. I don't know. I was kind of flirting with like, oh, Bunting looked pretty good in the preseason. The top, no, that is John Tavares' spot. He looks too good out there. Him and Willie are just owning the power play. He looks good to him. I don't think that's an overreaction. We're seeing a
I'm
resurgence.
I'm loving it. I don't know. I'm still not. It's just like we'll see it. I need a little longer to like get my heart truly in it, but I am loving me some good Johnny Toronto.
Now that Nicky Robb
Comments.
is on that line, it's him. Nothing's gonna slow him down. He's coming. 50-50, John Tavares.
Oh man, number one center, Austin Matthews. Take number two.
Tim is in love. John Tavares. I agree. Okay. That's
All
enough.
right.
That's enough. We're done.
It's set.
I'm done with both of you.
What games do we have coming up this week?
Vegas on Monday, Sharks on
It's our
Thursday, a
it's our
late
Western
one,
trip.
Kings on
So
Saturday, Ducks on Sunday. Back to back.
Steven, you hate Vegas. What are you doing watching that game? Are you having a bunch of your Vegas poser friends over to watch the game?
I don't associate with anyone that is a fan of the Vegas Golden Knights anymore.
That's a good decision. That's probably good
No,
for your
I hate
mental health.
Vegas. It's honestly though, like the amount that I hate the Jets is so much more than the amount I hate Vegas. Like I don't even really think about Vegas right now. But uh
I just want to beat up on Jack Eichel. I want that to be the game that Austin Matthews just takes over and embarrasses Jack Eichel in his new home.
let's cook them. Let's cook them, fellas. All right, that's it. 4
That's
games
right.
this week. Everybody go on. Let's enjoy it. Have some smile, gentlemen.
And everyone remember that Tim was wrong about Nick Robertson this week.